The sun hadn't yet broken the horizon when the first shell screamed across the water. In those early morning hours, most of the world was asleep. But in the Caribbean, 2 warships were about to write a new chapter in modern naval warfare. What you're about to hear isn't just another military story. It's the moment when decades of training, billions in technology, and split-second decisions collided in the most unexpected way. This is the encounter that changed everything. The Caribbean isn't just vacation water. It's become a chessboard where superpowers test each other's resolve. Since 2019, this region has witnessed dozens of tense standoffs between US and Venezuelan forces, but only a handful have ever crossed the line into actual combat. Most people don't realize that the USS Gravely wasn't just passing through on routine patrol. This Arleigh Burke-class destroyer carries one of the most sophisticated Aegis combat systems ever deployed, capable of tracking multiple threats across vast distances simultaneously. Every sensor, every weapon system, every line of code has been designed for one purpose: to survive what's coming and hit back harder. What makes this encounter different is location and timing. The attack happened exactly 47 miles from Venezuelan territorial waters, placing it firmly in international shipping lanes where U.S. Navy presence is not just legal but expected under maritime law. But here's what the news won't tell you. This wasn't the first time these 2 specific vessels had crossed paths. The Venezuelan captain knew exactly who he was challenging. And he chose to attack anyway. At exactly 5:22 in the morning, shells from a 76mm cannon tore across 3/4 of a mile of open water, aimed directly at USS Gravely. The crew aboard Gravely had trained extensively for this moment. Every sailor on that bridge had completed hundreds of hours of combat simulation. Yet nothing, absolutely nothing, prepares you for the first time you see actual muzzle flashes cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. The Venezuelan gunners opened up with everything they had. In the first 90 seconds alone, 17 shells were fired. Each one carefully aimed to land in what military tacticians call the intimidation zone, close enough to be seen, heard, and felt, but theoretically far enough to avoid direct hits. 3 of those shells landed within 80 meters of Gravely's port side. Close enough that sailors on deck could hear the supersonic crack splitting the air before the explosion of water. The concussion waves rattled equipment. Salt spray rained down on metal surfaces. But what shocked the American crew wasn't just the incoming fire. It was what happened next. The Venezuelan patrol boat, rather than maintaining standoff distance after its opening salvo, began closing fast. Cutting the gap from 1,400 meters to under 600 in less than 4 minutes. Their bow wave grew higher as engines pushed to maximum power. Their gun never stopped firing. The Venezuelan commander thought he had momentum. Thought aggression and surprise would force the destroyer to retreat. He was betting everything on a single psychological calculation, that the Americans wouldn't risk an international incident by firing back. He was wrong. Most analysts focus on missiles and guns. When they talk about naval combat, they're looking at the wrong battlefield. The real war started with something invisible: electronic warfare. Within seconds of the first shot, Gravely's and /SLQ-32 electronic warfare suite lit up. This system can detect, analyze, and counter enemy radar and communications across multiple frequency bands simultaneously. It's not just defensive, it's predatory. Gravely's computers identified the Venezuelan boat's fire control radar signature and began feeding it corrupted data. False positions. Ghost targets. The enemy gunners suddenly found their computer-assisted aim fighting against them. Meanwhile, the Venezuelan crew deployed jamming equipment, likely acquired through recent defense agreements that Western intelligence had been tracking. These systems scrambled GPS signals within a 5-mile radius, affecting not just Gravely but also commercial shipping in the area. What the Venezuelan operators didn't account for was redundancy. American warships don't rely on any single navigation system. Gravely's backup inertial navigation, mechanical gyroscopes that have worked since before satellites existed, kept feeding perfect position data to the fire control computers. While the patrol boat thought it was creating electronic chaos, Gravely's systems were already calculating firing solutions based on pure mathematics, inertial tracking, and celestial navigation. Ancient technology merged with modern computing. And that combination was about to become devastating. At 5:34 a.m., 12 minutes into the confrontation, Lookout spotted movement in the distance. Small objects lifting off from Isla de Margarita, 23 miles to the southwest. These weren't military drones in the traditional sense. They were modified commercial quadcopters, cheap and expendable, each carrying cameras and small explosive charges. The kind of asymmetric threat that keeps naval planners awake at night. Here's the problem they created. Each drone forced Gravely's defensive systems to make a cost-benefit calculation. Traditional close-in weapon systems can shred small targets, but the ammunition isn't cheap and supplies are finite. Do you spend defensive rounds on threats that might only be surveillance platforms? The swarm approached in a loose formation, making targeting decisions even more complex. Some flew high. Others skimmed the wave tops. They were probing for weaknesses, looking for gaps in the defensive umbrella. But what happened next exposed a capability that even most military observers didn't know existed in operational status. Gravely deployed a directed energy weapon. A laser system that had been tested extensively but never used in actual combat until that Caribbean morning. No missiles. No bullets. No explosive rounds. Just invisible beams of concentrated light, each one powerful enough to fry electronics instantly. In under 20 seconds, 9 drones dropped from the sky. No ammunition expended. No debris to track. Just small splashes as burning wreckage hit the water. The Venezuelan plan wasn't working anymore. And on the patrol boat's bridge, someone finally started to understand they'd miscalculated badly. Here's what the Venezuelan crew saw through their optics: an American destroyer backing away, changing course, seemingly trying to create distance while dealing with multiple threats. Their commander might have felt a surge of confidence. The giant was retreating. Here's what was actually happening. Gravely was maneuvering into a firing position that its tactical computers had been calculating since the encounter began. Every turn, every speed change, every apparent retreat was moving chess pieces into place. Modern naval warfare isn't about the ship you can see. It's about the weapons you never knew were there. Sitting submerged miles to the southeast was USS New Jersey, a Virginia-class submarine that had been tracking this entire encounter through passive sonar. Silent. Invisible. Deadly. At 5:41 a.m., Gravely achieved what naval tacticians call firing geometry, a position where its weapons could strike from angles the enemy couldn't effectively defend against. The Venezuelan captain made his final mistake at 5:42 when he ordered maximum speed, pushing his engines hard while executing a sharp turn. He was trying to cut inside Gravely's turning radius, to get close where the destroyer's big guns couldn't depress low enough to target him. Those 6 seconds of aggressive maneuvering were enough. Gravely launched. Not from the forward tubes where the Venezuelan radar operator was watching. From the aft vertical launch system, sending missiles on a curved flight path that approached from behind the patrol boat's defensive cone. The missiles arced up into the dawn sky, then curved down in a high-angle attack profile. By the time the Venezuelan radar operator saw the warning indicators, there wasn't even time to shout a warning. 2 missiles. Both struck within seconds of each other. Not to sink, but to cripple. Precision strikes on the propulsion system and the forward gun mount. The patrol boat went from aggressive predator to dead in the water in less than a minute. The Venezuelan patrol boat is currently anchored under repair with damage costs that exceed half its original value. No sailors died, the strikes were surgical, but 11 were injured, and the captain was quietly removed from command days later. USS Gravely continued its patrol for another 2 days, before rotating back to Naval Station Norfolk. The crew received no public recognition because the Pentagon classified the entire engagement under national security protocols. But here's what changed. That nobody's talking about. Every Venezuelan naval vessel has since maintained significant distance from U.S. ships. A complete reversal from years of increasingly aggressive approaches. The rules of engagement in the Caribbean have been rewritten without a single diplomatic note being exchanged. The real impact isn't measured in damaged equipment. It's measured in the message that traveled through every naval headquarters from Havana to Caracas to Moscow. Close-range provocation against modern U.S. warships isn't viable anymore. Not when destroyers can simultaneously defend against guns, drones, and missiles while maintaining enough reserve firepower to end the fight in under 2 minutes. The era of testing American resolve with patrol boats and aggressive maneuvering just ended. Not because of policy changes or diplomatic pressure, but because technology has created a gap that can't be closed with courage and aggression alone. This encounter just redefined what naval confrontation looks like in 2025. Venezuela tested American limits and got an answer they weren't expecting. But tensions haven't disappeared, they've just moved underwater and into the electromagnetic spectrum, where cameras can't follow and headlines can't reach. The Caribbean remains a proving ground. The next incident might not allow for restraint. And when it happens, the window between first contact and final outcome will be measured in seconds, not minutes. That's the new reality of naval warfare. Technology doesn't just change the odds, it changes the entire game.